Okay, it's recording.
Hi everyone, my name is Ajisha Alwin. I am the ESA Student Section Social Media Webmaster and Marketing Officer for this term. And today our co-host is Callie Oldfield, our Vice Chair, and we welcome you to our webinar series, An Unconventional Graduate Journey, the Application Process. And hope you all have fun and get a lot of knowledge from this. And I'm gonna have Callie introduce herself and then talk a little bit about the travel awards for our annual meeting this year, which is completely virtual. Callie?
Okay, hello, yes, thank you for joining us. My name is Callie Oldfield. I'm a PhD candidate in plant biology at the University of Georgia. I'm an NSF GRF fellow. I study carbon cycling, forest disturbance, plants essentially. And yeah, I'm the vice chair of the ESA student section, and we have some really great virtual travel grants. So if you're interested in ecology, which I think if you're in this meeting, you probably are, the student section is giving away 130 travel grants to come to the virtual meeting. And I'll put the link in the chat in a minute, but essentially it's first come, first served basis. We're just looking for lots of people to apply. We want to give you all the opportunity to come see the really cool research. You don't have to be presenting, you just have to be a student or a recent graduate. And there's like a little application to fill out, essentially like talking about like why you want to come to the meeting and how you can contribute to the diversity of the meeting. But that's about it. So I really highly encourage you to apply if you're at all interested. You can, make some connections, meet people, hang with the student section members, and yeah, it'll be a great experience. So I'll put a link to that in the chat. If you have any questions, let me know. It's a little confusing to operate the portal, especially if you're not a current member of ESA. So yeah, just shoot me an email if you're applying and have trouble.
Thank you, Callie. I also think we have a little guide posted on our social media as well, which is like a step-by-step, kind of breakdown of how you need to apply if you're a member and also if you're not a member. So also you can shoot Callie an email, as she said, and thank you so much, Callie, for explaining that. Let me introduce myself one more time. Given my interest, I work at the norovirus lab, the CARS lab at the University of Florida College of Medicine. And I'm a graduate student in microbiology, currently taking a bit of a break because I'm now applying for transferring to my PhD instead. And my interests are education, mentoring particularly. I love mentoring people, and also outreach, why I wanted to do this and given this time. And also I'm also very interested in host micropathogenesis, infectious diseases, and a bunch of other, anything microbiology, anything biomedicine interests me. So that's me. And we can start off with our first topic. What resume boosting activities can you do during, staying at home? So I'm going to start off with some things that I would like to talk about, and then I'm going to give Callie to see if she has anything else to add. So the first thing I had in mind when I thought of that question was, if you want to apply to grad school, you need to do some coursework. Like any coursework that you do adds to your resume, especially like your very major specific coursework. So during this time, a lot of big schools have made their courses available online, and not just for auditing, but also getting a certificate for free. So not all courses, but a lot of specific courses have been made available for free. So you can take those and get a certificate signed from that professor that you've cleared that course, and you could add that to your resume. Definitely would help if they see that you've had a course taken from, let's say, Harvard. I'm taking one right now. I'm taking a couple. So because I know that to be more competitive in the PhD cycle next year, I need to do something during this time apart from just sitting at home. So I think that is a really good thing to do while you're at home, just to go into courses and just audit them or take a certificate if it's available for free. And I think a lot of sites that I've seen are like Coursera, Canvas, everything has their own section of free courses. And I think there are a lot of sites that actually organize all of these. Class Central is one of them. So just do check it out, and it might be a good resource for you to look into. Other than that, what other resume boosting activities can I think of? Definitely presenting at a conference. It doesn't matter if it's big or if it's a small conference. Definitely presenting would give you a different perspective. Participating in workshops, increasing your skill set, anything you can put on a resume that you can find on the internet. You can look for it. Like try a lot of Facebook groups as can also give you a lot of, how do I put it, resources, and definitely check that out as well. Callie, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, it sort of depends on what stage you are and whether or not you've engaged in any research. But I highly recommend that even if you haven't engaged in research, you can connect with scientists or look for mentors. Many of us are willing to have a mentoring relationship with you, which might, lead to research or lead to something that helps you as you get into graduate school. If you can work towards publishing a paper, that can be a really, really positive thing in terms of your application into graduate school and into competitive fellowships. And like when you're at home, that's like one of the really great times if you've already done some research that you can focus on writing a paper or, making that poster for a conference, or just use it as like a networking tool. So that's really what I've been trying to do now that I'm trapped at home. So normally I'm like a forest ecologist, like outside digging in the dirt. But we're like on a hiatus for that. So I've been working on papers and forming collaborations and talking to people. So if you can do that, that would be really great.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm doing a paper myself, doing a revision right now so I can get that published. But while it takes a lot of work, it definitely staying at home does give me a lot more time to focus on that. So I would definitely encourage that. And speaking of finding mentors, Callie, I think we can kind of tie that in with the finding recommenders as well. So, and I think we can also show our emails, like how to connect with mentors at this time. So first off, let me start off by saying who do you approach for asking to be your mentor? So you have your interests, obviously, if you're applying for a graduate program, master's or a PhD, you definitely will have a specific area of interest and a couple of schools you might have in mind. So the best way to look for people is to go to your graduate school's website, and under their application, under their program information, they're going to have a faculty listing. And when you look there, they're going to have all of the faculty that they have available and their TAs and all the postdocs that work under them as well, and the topics that they research on. If that interests you, you can definitely send them an email asking them if they could talk to you about your research, have a little chat. They probably will not be free for a Zoom meeting all the time, but they might give you a phone call. They might exchange information via email, or they might have one of their postdocs or other people in the lab explain to you via Zoom call. So anything that would help would definitely, that's the way to approach students, professors, and potential PIs. So I think, Callie, so do you want to start with your email? So we're going to show you a sample email of approaching PI.
Let me give a little bit more commentary though. Yeah, so what we're talking about is this would be generally an ecology program. So definitely think about what type of program you're interested in. Ecology, you'll most specifically apply to be in an advisor's lab. Other programs, you're discouraged from contacting PIs, which stands for principal investigator, which would be like the head of the lab, your advisor. You really need to kind of read up on the culture of maybe the program or the discipline you're interested in, especially if there's a rotation system. They may not want as formal of a contact as ecology. Ecology demands you essentially to secure a relationship with a professor in advance of applying, so you know where you're going. Other disciplines, it's a little different, so you'll want to think about that. But yeah, so we're in the process where you've identified what schools you're interested in, and you're establishing contact with one or more professors at that school that you might be interested in working with. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you the email that I sent to get my current position. Can you see that? I don't know if it's really big.
Yeah, I can see it. I think we can.
Okay, well, I can read it to you essentially. I'll summarize, what it's saying. So first I said, "Dear Doctor, the professor is interested in." And then I gave a little introduction about myself. So I said, "I'm applying for a PhD in this department at the school. I'm interested in your lab. This is a little bit about like my current position and what I'm researching, what I'm interested in." So yeah, so I want to continue doing research in plant composition and disturbance. The second paragraph is a little bit about the research that I've been doing, more specifically like in the topic that I'm interested in. So, this is what I'm doing. I saw on your lab website that you might be interested in a student who does this. So this middle paragraph really is like the one that's tailored to the professor, tailored to the lab. If you're really motivated, you should read a couple of papers by the professor and cite them there. Maybe you can say like, "Oh, I was really interested in this method," or I, think it'd be really cool to do this type of study in this different study area. Making that connection is really important, but also not like overdoing it, because you don't want to put like hours of effort into each email when you might be sending out like 10 or 20 or more. And then the last paragraph, my department is a little special in that we have a rotation system that's not common in departments that include ecology, but my department is more of a taxonomic focus, so like all of plant biology. So we do have a rotation system, but essentially what I'm asking in this last paragraph is, are you having new graduate students join in the fall 2016, which is when I went into a PhD program? You definitely want to ask them point blank, are you having someone join? Do you have funding? Are you available to talk about it? And then I attached my CV, which gave more information about me, basically. And then I just thanked him for his time and said my name. And then this is my CV at the time. So it was 3 pages: education, awards, publications, positions, research experience in current projects, and then presentations and skills. Any questions about my experience? This is the same email I sent to like 20 different advisors, and most of them actually did respond to me and schedule a Zoom meeting, or it was Skype back in the day, but now it's Zoom.
Thank you, Callie. That is actually a really good email. I really like it. It's actually really similar to mine. Before I share my email, I'm gonna add on to some stuff that Callie said, like how ecology focuses on you have to look at like what the structure of the organization, like programs are going to be different. So in my side, in biology side, definitely. So in my program, we have a rotation system for sure, but there are also instances where you can directly contact the PI and directly enter their lab as well. So the rotation system applies for students who don't really know what they want to do yet, like concentration wise. So they get to do rotations in different concentration labs before they choose. So after they choose, they stick with there. So you can make that decision prior, but if you're not sure, definitely go and check different labs out. Choose the rotation instead of a lab. So I mean, this time you can definitely utilize it to reach out to PIs and get them to see if they can get them to talk to you, and then hopefully you can get a position at their lab. I'm gonna share a screen. This is okay. There we go. Okay. Screen. Yep, that's the screen. Okay. So, all right. I'm gonna show the email I sent my PI. This is. So my current PI, so she's actually the first one I emailed, and she responded, and I started working for her. So I only ever sent one email for when I job searched for this one. So the gist of this is, I hope you guys can read it. So basically, I was very interested in her work about the norovirus, and I was specifically interested in her work with the mouse norovirus and host microbe interaction. So that's the one I wanted to look at. And I read her paper. I mean, obviously I didn't cite the paper here, but I did mention that this is what I read, and also I read her description in our website. So UF's website has, a page with the faculty listing, like I mentioned before. Every school will have that. So I also mentioned there, and of course I asked this for being an unpaid research assistant, because I was just wanting to do like a conventional rotation process, before I transferred to the PhD. So this is a little different. So this would be you if you are still waiting and we didn't have this whole COVID situation. Like if this was a normal summer, this is what I would ask you to do. Like just get some rotation experience with, so I did this because I didn't have any like microbiome lab experience prior to this. So this is like my very first thing. So I told her that I'm in the master's program. So I would really like to, work in your lab and see how it's at so that I can make a decision before I transfer to the PhD. So also I did mention a phone call. So I thought that's all I would get because she's she's one of the most popular PIs in my college, and I was not expecting actual interview, but she gave me an interview. So she responded to me and she gave me an interview. And also later on, I asked her if she had any funding available to take me in when I join as my PhD. So obviously that is definitely a question you should ask. But at the end of the day, it's about, finding a good mentor, and you're not going to find that in everybody, but if you approach more people, you can get a feel as to how that school itself is. So when you apply for a certain school, I highly suggest you talk to at least one or two people from that school who are like PIing in the area of your interest, so you get the feel for the program itself. So different programs have different focuses. Some are more theory focused. They have a research site set, but they're more focused on the theory and concentrations. Some are very research focused. You have very little classwork you need to do, but more on the research. So you need to understand what you like and where you want to go, because you're going to be spending 4 to 5 years there. So definitely get a feel for the organization, what kind of, so I think with that, we can start with the next question. I think Callie mentioned that earlier, like funding and how to like choose schools, like, which have different forms of funding, like, fellowships and scholarships, and some pay a stipend. So with that, I'm going to start talking a little bit about that, and then we can move forward I'll let Callie explain a little bit more about that. So starting off with funding, ecology programs and biology related programs have different things with regards to funding. Some programs provide stipends, as in you would be working as an RA or a TA during your PhD program, most likely an RA, and they would give you a stipend per year to kind of just, be in the program, and they would probably waive your tuition and maybe give you some housing funding. So, in other cases, you would apply for a fellowship. A fellowship is something that I would let Callie explain better because I haven't taken a fellowship. But so depending upon the funding, you definitely want to see how that will, equate to your own living expenses and how you're going to survive for like during your PhD, because you don't want to take a position or an offer that's gonna put you in a financially, disadvantage when you could be taking a program that would give you a good advantage. So you're comfortably, because PhD is hard enough as it is. You don't want financial problems on top of it. So I think that's an important consideration to have, and all this information will be in your program website. And definitely do look at that, and also look at if your status is different, like as in you're an international student, definitely look at the fellowship opportunities for that, because they're going to be completely different. Like you won't be eligible for a lot of aid. So you want to make sure you kind of look through it really kind of keenly, I suppose that's the good word to use. So I'm going to let Callie talk about fellowships in general, and then anything else if she wants to add.
Yeah, so I applied for 5 graduate programs. I was invited to 4 interviews. I was accepted into 4 programs, and all of them were pretty clear about the funding. Most of them were actually teaching assistantships. Most students were funded through teaching assistantships, where you essentially are assigned to teach like a biology lab, and you just do that every semester, and that's how you make your money. Some of them were RA-ships, which stands for research assistantships, where usually the professor you're interested in has a grant, and that grant has some money for some graduate students, either for your whole PhD or your whole master's, or for just a period of time through your master's. So you might be funded through a combination of TA-ships and RA-ships. It's just something you definitely want to ask about. But you can also get fellowships from both the school or from external programs. when I came into the University of Georgia and a couple of the other programs I applied to, I was awarded an internal fellowship, which basically is just like the graduate school had money to recruit, high achieving people or whatever. And so they awarded it to a certain number of people. And so that was part of my decision-making process. I chose the program that basically gave me the best funding. So at UGA, I got 2 years of funding from the graduate school. And then while I was being funded through that RA-ship, I also applied for external fellowships, one of them being the NSF GRFP. If you guys haven't heard of it, highly, highly, highly recommend you look into it. Not only is it a chance to get, a ton of money and research opportunities, but if you are currently an undergraduate or you're not in graduate school yet, it's also a chance to go ahead and get all of your references together before formally applying for graduate school, and also writing a personal statement, writing a research statement. You basically have to do all those things when you apply for graduate school anyway, and so it's kind of 2 birds, 1 stone, plus you get this fellowship application, so you might actually, win money. The GRP is just one of many different programs. It totally depends on your discipline. You can ask around or look at people's CVs for ideas of other fellowships you can apply for. But I highly, highly recommend you apply for the NSF GRP if you are not yet in graduate school. If you're in graduate school, you have to apply basically by your 2nd year. You can either apply as a 1st year graduate student, either master's or PhD, or a 2nd year graduate student, but you can read the eligibility. And then the other thing I wanted to add that Ajisha kind of touched on is that when you're looking for a graduate advisor, you really want a good mentor. You'll want to ask probing questions to that person so that you can evaluate whether or not you have a good personality fit, if their expectations sound reasonable, if you think you'd want to work with this person for several years. And one way to really get at that is to also contact either current or past members of the lab, their lab. So I sent out several emails and I talked to people, and that really helped me decide who might be a good advisor for me. And of course, having an actual in-person meeting, if those are actually going to happen this year, during recruitment weekend, really helps you make that decision too. But asking basically another person's opinion is really great. Hearing what they say can be telling.
Yeah, thank you, Callie. That was great. Definitely talk to your mentor, because you don't want to actually start working for them and then realize that the personality fit is not the best, because you're going to be working with them for a really long time, and they're the ones that are going to make life-changing decisions for you, including their publication. So you want to make sure you have all of your priorities set, because when you're you're in a master's or a PhD program, you're going to have to publish or do your thesis. So you want to make sure you have all that you're going to have all the facilities and the permissions that you need to conduct what the research that you want to conduct, and also have the ability to publish. So that definitely falls on your PI, principal investigator, head of your lab. So you want to make sure you talk to them, make sure they're going to give you that opportunity and the ability to access funding. Everything flows through them, so you want to make sure you have a really good relationship with them first. Next, I did see a question from, I believe, Tanya, for asking about when we should approach a PI, which is also tied in with how you pick recommenders. So I will definitely start off with that, and then I'll leave it to Callie. So with PIs, approaching them, or what time of the year, especially if you're trying to apply to their school's graduate program, if your application starts, let's say in October, definitely start approaching PIs August, because they're going to need a lot of time, especially if you're applying in the fall, which is what the application dates are for most PhD programs and a lot of master's programs as well. So you're going to want to reach out to them around the beginning of the semester, when they're not that busy. So as the semester progresses, they're going to have a lot of grading and a lot of other work they're going to be really busy in. So try to catch them in the first 2 weeks of school, so that they can respond to you in a good time. Even better if you can reach them the week before school starts, so that they have a lot more time. So when you I would say immediately, as soon as you make a decision to pursue that school, email that person and just keep sending them reminders until they respond. There isn't a certain timeline, but if you want me to tell you like, okay, don't go past this, definitely a couple months before, because they're going to need a lot of weeks to give you a recommendation. Or if you're approaching a PI for a school you're pursuing and they're actually willing to give you a recommendation or like a little memo to their program saying that you're a person that we would like to have, definitely reach out to them 2 months before, because they're going to need time to do that. I learned that the hard way once, so I will tell you, please reach out to them 2 months prior. So that's for the PI, reaching out to the PIs and your recommenders, and who you should have as your recommenders is the main important question. Next, that depends on your program. I've heard this from a lot of different programs, for ecology programs, for biology programs. Then the people that they look for are different. So what you need are like for most programs, I believe there's 3 minimum recommenders for ecology and biology programs at the same, and you can have a maximum of 5 letters. People don't recommend 5 letters, they usually recommend 4, and 5 only if you have like 5 really good people that can like exemplify your skills. So the main purpose of having recommendation letters is to showcase your skills via your supervisor. So they should explain what you've done, how well you've done it, and how well you'll be a good fit to the program, personality wise. But the first thing they're going to be talking about, or admission committees are going to be looking at, is your skill set. And that's what your recommenders are going to be vouching for. So if you're applying to, let's say, let's say just say an ecology program, and who would you approach for your recommender? So let's say if you worked at an administrative office for a nonprofit, and then you have your research mentor. So ask your research mentor first, even if you're closer with your nonprofit leadership position. While that is also important, definitely have a variety of how do I put it, recommenders. So try to have at least 2 research mentors, like 2 PIs that you really love, who you have a really good relationship with. Have them write 2 letters, and then have 1 leadership letter written by a supervisor at like any leadership position that you might have had. If you want to do all 3 of them as your research mentors, that's just fine. But also make sure you have a variety of different people who can showcase different skills that you have. I think that's the first thing that you need to look at when you look at recommenders. For biology programs, people definitely want to hear about your lab experiences, like your ability to locate things in the lab, follow lab protocol. So you want to have a person that can like tell the committee that you're good at this, you can do this, you have published papers, you have done conferences and publications that are not in peer-reviewed journals can only be vouched for by your PIs, because you're not gone through that whole process. So definitely have them write about that. Any conference you're presented at, any presentation you've hosted, apart from mainstream conferences that will get published on the internet, please ask them to mention that, and then also ask them to exemplify any skills that you might have had during your time with them. So that is my take on the recommenders, and that's how I pick mine. So Callie, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so back to the topic of timeline. The timeline I had really was August to like the end of October, contact PIs, go into Zoom meetings with them, talk to them, see who is really like a solid lead. And then pretty much all the programs I applied to, the deadline was December. So I only applied to programs where I had already established contact with at least 1 person. This seemed like a pretty solid contact, like they seemed interested in taking graduate school students, potentially me. So that was my timeline there. I would really say professors are like super busy and also super scatterbrained and trying to do about like 5,000 things at once. So if you send an email and they don't reply to you, don't take that as like a personal thing, and definitely send another email to them, like maybe 2 more emails or 3 more emails before giving up, because again, they get like a bunch of emails and then they don't even look at them sometimes. So I would just say send the email, wait a week, send it again, wait another week, send it again. If you don't get a response after that, okay, I crossed them off the list, but be persistent, that's okay. Yeah, so that's my idea of the timeline. And then in terms of choosing letters of recommendation, I feel like with Ajisha, it sounds like, you know, you have a ton of like really great research experience and that's really helped you get into your graduate program. But I don't think that, like, I don't think it's true that if you don't have any research experience, you won't get into graduate school. I think it's really important to focus on, you know, what you've learned, what you can be, what you're striving for, and not to feel like, oh, just because I don't have a specific lab experience, I won't get into graduate school. I know a lot of people in my program who are really successful who didn't really formally have any research or lab experience. So I wouldn't like super sweat that, but I would be very strategic in choosing the letters of recommendation. And you can really, I mean, it kind of depends on your relationship with this person, but I really told my letters of recommendation people like what I wanted them to write in the letter essentially, like, you know, oh, can you talk about this experience we did and this thing I did and this I learned and like examples of this. Like you can be like really straightforward in what you want from them because I was trying to use my three to show like three different aspects of my personality or skills.
Mhm.
So don't be shy is what I'm saying.
Yeah, actually, Callie, now that you mentioned, I actually don't have much research experience. Mine is a very unconventional journey because I'm a clinical psych major and a cognitive sciences major, and I had nothing to do with microbiology at the time. I used to be a biomed major, but I virtually had no experience. But this is what I was told, like, you know, you need to have your RAs, like, you need to have your RA experience. I virtually had one. The RA experience, and that wasn't even in my field. So what I did for my recommendations was actually my leadership. That was one thing that kind of helped me get my master's in. But also I did also work for ESA as an intern last summer. So Teresa Moya, the director, she wrote me a letter, just honestly I think a really tipping point for me. But again, you don't have to worry that much if you don't have research experiences, because that isn't what that counts. What counts is your personal statement and how invested you are in the program. But I mean, having research experiences does really help. But if you don't, please don't get yourself down, because if that was me, I would have been not applying to any programs ever, because I only have one experience and that's not enough. And I was told that by multiple schools as well. I mean, because I'm applying for a microbiology program and I don't have much experience, that might be a deterring factor, but not for all programs. There will definitely be programs that are willing to accept you and then willing to train you to become, because it's not really defining quality. So in that note, please reach out to people. That's another thing. So if they know you don't have that much experience, they might be willing to guide you to get more experience before you enter the program. So definitely talk to them, develop a good relationship with them. And as Callie said, strategically choose your letters of recommendations. You might have a lot, you might have 10 you're so close with, but just pick the ones that you think your program will want. And on that note, let me move on to the personal statement that we really need to talk a lot about, because personal statements are the most important part of your application, especially when you're applying to ecology and biology programs. The personal statement is essentially your take on why you want to apply to the program and what skills you have and experiences you have that will add to the program. And a lot of programs will probably note in their descriptions that they're looking for motivated students, they're looking for students with a certain amount of skills in this area, that area, they like these kind of coursework that you needed to have done. All these things that they say they want to have, if you have any of them, talk about them in your present statement. Your experience with your undergrad major, your experience that changed you, what made you choose your major. People want to hear your story. And that's what admissions committees are going to look at, because that's what will tell them who you are as a person. So that's why it's called a personal statement. So talk about what you have done, anything you can find that they want you to have, that you do have, talk about it. And also definitely make a connect between why you chose your major and why you chose your program and who you want to work with. If you have approached a PI, and you are going to work with them, definitely talk about them. Talk about their research, talk about what part of their lab you want to work on, because that is definitely going to be a deciding factor in them to give you an interview. Because if they know that you're already in good terms with a PI in their college, then they are definitely going to look at you a little, they're going to be like, oh, no, she's working for her, and then they'll probably go talk to the PI that you're in contact with. But at the end of it, it's your story. make it as personal as possible and talk about as many skills you have as possible, and anything that relates to your major, talk about it. It's going to help a lot. Callie, what do you have to say
Yeah,
after that?
so I remember when I was writing my personal statement, it was kind of annoying because a lot of programs would have like different-ish prompts, like different enough that I'd have to like rewrite it. So definitely think about, what they want you to write like several weeks or months in advance of the deadline because you might have to like revise it depending on different programs. But so I have my statement for miss. I'm looking at it. So basically, I just talked about like I had an introduction to like me, you know, where did I graduate from, what's a really brief research summary of what I've done, what I'm interested in, and then where am I going. And then I went into like specific experiences. So like I went on this field study course. I learned this skill. It made me interested in this topic, which translates to ecology. It's basically like kind of like the experience and then what you got out of it type story. So I did that a couple of times. And then I kind of summed this up with like where I wanted to go. So, I talked about like I want to be a professor at a small liberal arts college because of these reasons and these experiences. This is the PI I'm interested in and why. This is how the PI relates to those research experiences that I just talked about. And then it's really nice if you have time to have like a paragraph that is talking about the program specifically. So like what appeals to you about this program, what appeals to you about the school, what unique opportunities are there that you really want to engage in. That shows that you've researched the program. And I think it's just like a nice thing to add. So it's up to you though.
Definitely, that's a good thing. I mean, when I did my personal statement, I love badminton. I play badminton professionally, and UF has a really good badminton team that I am a part of. So I mentioned that in my personal statement. I was like, "Go Gators! I love being a." So that is going to give them that personal edge to you. So they know that you really love the school and you really want to go there. Anything that you would like to add on a personal basis, like Callie said, if you like something about that program specifically, definitely put that in your statement. And don't, and as far as personal statements go, I've written a couple, and this time when I showed my personal statement to my PI for the first time, she cut like half of it off. So she's like, make sure it's relevant. And that's another thing that's really important when it comes to your personal statement. Make sure everything is relevant. I mean, you might have a lot of stories to say, but just make sure you pick the ones that they're gonna look at the most. So that's something really important. Make it a page and a half at the most when you do your personal statement, and that would be a really good thing to start off on. Now that we're in like the last 15 minutes, I'm gonna quickly go over the international student differences between applying. So international students are essentially students who are in the F1 visa or J1 visa. J1 is really rare, but F1 in general. But also students who are coming from another country with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree from their country. So they would have to write a TOEFL, which I'm sure if any of you are international students, you've probably heard this one before. It's let me see if I can remember. Okay, yeah, test of English as a foreign language. That's the full form of TOEFL. You definitely will have to write it, but if you're like me, you have a bachelor's from a United States institution, you wouldn't have to write it because you already have a degree certifying that you're English speaking from an English speaking institution. So that is the first thing you need to look at. That is the first change. So you need to write a TOEFL to get in. But also a really big note to international students, a lot of programs, actually almost all PhD programs in this country do not require a master's. You can straight off go from your bachelor's. So that's a really important note to have. If you already have your master's from your country, that's awesome. But if you don't, you still can apply for your PhD program because you are definitely still eligible. This is like the only country that does that, so that I know of. So I am really happy that it does that. But that's the first thing. And the second thing is all of your paperwork. You need to have a lot of paperwork, and a lot of schools will need you to submit like your passport information, your residency paperwork, and a lot of other things. And this is another important thing. If you're an international student, reiterate in your personal statement that you are one, and talk about why you want to come here, why you want to come into the United States, and why you're pursuing your education in a different country, because that is something that is going to tie your story together. Definitely talk about that. And as far as recommenders go, it's a similar process, but I know different countries have different systems, especially in India. The timeline needs to be larger depending upon where you're from. If you're from India, like I am, your timeline needs to be 4 months, because you are not going to even see your PI and they're not going to check their emails. So depending upon where you're from, adjust your timeline. You know the people that you work with the best. So definitely adjust your timeline regarding. And the next thing is funding for international students. A lot of fellowships for ecology and biology programs like stipends still apply to international students. So you wouldn't have different opportunities. You might have more actually, because you're, as an international student, you're open to more grants. But there might be times when your program doesn't give you enough funding if you're an international student, but it should be visible in that program information. So that's something really important for you to decide before you come to another country. So definitely look at it, look at what they're giving you. When you compare your offers, make sure they're giving you a good stipend, they're giving you good housing benefits, all the benefits that you have, just sum them up and make sure you compare your offers based off of that, because you're going to be coming here, you're going to be probably living by yourself and your family is in another country. So you make sure you have a good financial support backing you when you do your program, because again, PhD programs are stressful, so definitely look at that. Another thing is there are going to be certain grade restrictions for specifically applicable to international students. So I think the GPA level is 3.0 or sometimes 3.2 for certain programs, but again, they're changing that up now because they don't want just international students to have that, but a lot of programs do have like certain course requirements that they want you to finish. Definitely check that out and make sure you have all of that ticked off before you apply to the program. There are going to be a lot of programs that don't have that, so also look at those programs, because those programs are probably going to be more open to international students to come in, even if you don't have those qualifications. So again, and all the other things we talked about being PIs, the recommenders, everything is the same, just like the visa process and everything is going to be a little different for an international student. The next thing, and I think the last thing of today, we need to talk about is the GRE. The GRE, as in the graduate research record examination, is something a lot of people are questioning. Do we need one? Do we not? Especially since COVID has made everything online. I mean, I personally have been hearing a lot of stories that the GRE is now glitching. And since it's online, there's a lot of issues with taking it. So GRE or no GRE, for a lot of ecology programs and biology programs, it's no longer required. A lot of top programs are taking that off of the requirement. I mean, they're like, if you have it, show it. If you have any grades you want to mask and you want a GRE to kind of top it up, take it, but it's not required by most programs anymore. So definitely check that when it comes to looking at the program. These are all the things you need to look at. Like, do they require a GRE? Sometimes they might require a GRE subject test, but that really does not exist anymore. So typically, if they ask you for a subject test and you have a really good grade in your specific subject, definitely add it. If you already have it, don't go and look at it again if they don't require it. It's I mean, use that money towards applying to another program, maybe, because it's expensive to take the GRE. If you don't need it, don't do it. And I think definitely look at if you need the GRE. And for prep, if you are going to take the GRE, I would say definitely look at the prep books that GRE themselves provide, like the practice exams, especially if you're taking it online. Now's the perfect time. You can do their practice tests, which are also online, and you can kind of like have it back. I personally use the Kaplan guide for like the English version, English word vocabulary test, because they have 500 words and that's all the wordings they're going to have in the entire test. So even if you, how do I put it, even if you read all of the 500 words, you should be covered for that entire section. So there are like booklets like that GRE themselves give out, so definitely check that out. And I'm pretty sure those flashcards for those 500 words also come as an app, so you can just swipe everywhere. So you can swipe, read those words as many times as you can, and you should be fine. And other than that, the mathematics section is basically college algebra and trigonometry. They don't have calculus or any advanced math in the GRE. They don't. I took it a couple years back, but they don't. And the other section is, I think, the reading section, which is something that is really important because that's something that's going to help you critically read when you're in grad school as well. So, and that section, all you have to do is if you have done a lot of paper reading in the past, or book review, literature reviews, anything that you would have done in your undergrad, just kind of do that again and again. Just do their practice exams, and you should be fine for the GRE. So the main question is, do you take it or do you not? If you're not required to take a GRE for your program, wait as much as you can if you want to take it, because as after it becomes maybe on in person again, because if you're wanting to put a choice between taking the GRE and then having it glitch in the middle, wait as much as you can. And if it is required, also make sure that all of your internet connections are good, because if it stops in the middle, it's giving you the same grade. So, and make sure you contact them, make sure everything is set up before you take it, so you don't want to have to take it again. So that's my take on the GRE. Callie, do you have anything to add for that?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to we kind of touched on it, but I just wanted to say, you can reach out to graduate students that are already in the program that you're interested in, and most of them are pretty open, even telling you about like the stipend amounts, whether or not it's livable for the area, what housing's like in the area. You can definitely ask them that. If you're an international student, ask to be connected with an international student in the program to help ask those questions. I just think talking to people is the easiest way to get the answers you're looking for, things about how the program is, if the student's happy, things like that. So on the topic of the GRE, if you can avoid taking it, I would highly recommend that. Although chances are at least one of the programs you're interested in will require it, and so you'll have to take it anyway. And then my second piece of advice is don't take it twice. Study the first time, one and done it. Studies show that you don't improve your GRE score by taking it again, unless you're putting in like a significant amount of studying or like a course or something. So just take it once if you have to. It's so expensive. $200 is a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just some annoying test. It's one of those things where like professors are like, oh, you just have to score, X amount and you're good. Well, to score X amount, that's probably still a significant amount of work on you, but they make it sound like so easy.
Yeah, it is. It's annoying. And also, I forgot to mention this, for international students, there is a bar. For other applicants, there is not, but typically they will also say that. So you need to have a minimum of 300 on your GRE to get into a lot of programs, which is ridiculous. But, and also coming back on that topic, I have heard this from admissions committees before, and I talk to admissions people a lot of times. So that's another way I get information. I contact their admission counselor, and I talk to the admission counselor, and they will tell me all the inside information for whatever program I'm applying to. So that is something I do a lot. So for GREs, just if you have a score you don't think that's that good, like it's in the 250s, somewhere about 200, not 300, don't let that dishearten you, because a lot of programs don't value that much anymore. So they'll definitely still consider you if you have a strong personal statement. Like, that is not a defining factor. And for international students, that is definitely a requirement for a lot of programs. So I would suggest to get that 300 bar up. But if you don't, definitely talk to the admissions committee or like some admission counselor there, and they will advise you what to do post, because if they don't require it for other students, they might waive that for you as well. So definitely talk to the admissions people. They're going to have a lot of information that can help you. I even got waivers once because I was so nice to them. They gave me a waiver for the admissions fee. So another, I think the admissions, we talked about a lot of things like choosing schools, and a lot of things. Is there any other questions that we have from people that are listening? We would like to answer them now.
Yeah, and you can put it in the chat box if you'd rather do that rather than talk to.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I really enjoyed this. This is fun. Revisiting all of the PhD things.
Someone left, so I guess that was a no.
I see. But Well, we can do a little concludatory talk because since we're gonna post this, let's see. So I think first we talked about like introduction and then travel awards and like how to choose your school. Yeah, a lot of things is just reaching out to people. A lot of reaching out to people. Since we are at stay at home, we now have a lot more opportunity to reach out as many people as we can. So that is another suggestion that we made is that you reach out to people that you might be interested in working for, and also who you would apply, like which schools you would apply to as PIs from there. So you can talk to them about their research. And also, and most importantly, you have to ask them about the experience there. Definitely, they might know about it. Even better, you could talk to like graduate research assistants who work in their lab. They're going to be listed in the website as well because they're officially working in the lab. They might be able to give you a different perspective as to how the program really is for students. And I think that definitely would help you, figure out which schools you want to apply to, how, diverse the program is when it comes to research topics. Like, make sure there's not 6 labs with varied interests, and there's another school that has like 50 labs with a lot of labs which have your interest. Make sure you have that variety when you choose, and also mainly the people, because grad school is also a community that you need to be comfortable with, like the learning environment, to the people you work with. So everything, make sure you have a good idea of before you join. So that's another thing about picking offers. I think we didn't talk about that, like what offer should you pick? I think we kind of talked about it in different sections, like the funding, the people, like all these factors, please take into account. And especially for international students, like Callie said, pick a person, like pick a peer that you know in that school. Like there's a lot of graduate school, like groups on Facebook. Definitely, if you want to talk to a specific person from that program or from that school, reach out to them, make sure they tell you what exactly the experience are going to be, what other, because you might have other hobbies like clubs, if you're interested in poetry. There are so many things you can explore in grad school, and you want to make sure if there's something you really love and you want it to be there, like even if it's a hobby, make sure you ask about it so you're going to be really comfortable when you're attending the program. For me personally, there needs to be a badminton club or I will not consider it. Well, like I have to kind of forego it sometimes, but I will definitely, that is one of my priorities because I play professionally and I need to be part of the collegiate team. So that is like that. There are so many different things you can consider. And also with the letters of recommendation we talked about, it doesn't matter if you don't have that much research experience. Highlight what you do have. Like a lot of skills you can gain without even going to the lab, and that's something that admission committees will look for. I think for me, a lot of the advice that I got to highlight myself, since I don't have research experience, is my leadership skills, is my management skills, organizational skills, all these things, and perseverance when it comes to classes. So if you don't have research experience or TAing experience, reach out to like your professors that met, like who you took a class with, and you perform really well, you think you have a good relationship with them, that recommendation letter will also count a lot. So let's say you're applying to a biology program and your gen bio or microbiome professor you have a really good relationship with, you work with them, and let's say you got an A in the class and you really, really love the class and you had a great experience, have them write a recommendation letter if possible. And even if you don't have an experience in working in a lab, you might have had that in the microbiome class lab, and they could, show that, okay, she's really skilled, or they're really skilled in this particular experiment or this particular procedure, which is going to help you a lot. I mean, I didn't get that done for me. I should probably have tried, but that is something that you can do when it comes to letters of recommendation. And GRE, hold it off as much as possible. If you don't need it, don't take it. And if you do need to take it, definitely make sure you're having everything set out because it's expensive. And you want to make sure you're not going to glitch out, and you want to make sure you have everything, the internet connection, everything, you're prepped. And also, like Callie said, don't take it a second time. I made that mistake, I humbly admit. But again, it's not going to change. Your score is not going to change by much. If you're past the threshold, doesn't matter. You don't have to take it in the first place, which is even more awesome. So as a concluding note, I'm going to put out the travel awards again. Please apply. The deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. EST. And we have 130 awards to award. We don't know how many applicants we can get, but I know we still have a lot more we can reach out to. So definitely apply. Ask Callie. Callie, if you don't mind, I would ask you to put your email and like the travel grant link up again. And also make sure I edit that into the video before I post it. So definitely apply for the travel awards and do participate at the ESA annual meeting 2020, which is virtual this year, which means you're expecting more than double our usual numbers, which is going to be a lot more presentations, a lot more posters, and a lot more people we can connect to. And speaking of connecting, when we talked about meeting PIs, a conference is a perfect place. There's going to be chat rooms, break rooms, socials. You can go to a lot of these things and you're going to be meeting a lot of different people. And from schools you might want to apply to, I met a lot of people at the last ESA meeting. And given the fact that we're going to have that many more people this time, definitely attend the meeting so you can talk to a lot of different people, peers. And like Callie said, we definitely want to ask about the experience from students themselves. So there's going to be students from all universities, like a lot of sorts of universities and all sorts of programs at the meeting. So definitely come so you can have a good view about what you want to do in the future, give you a good career direction. And also if you are presenting, congratulations and good luck for presenting at the annual meeting. And then this series will continue. We are not sure what to call the next one yet, but we will be doing that shortly. And thank you so much for everybody that participated today. And this video will be posted on all social media. I'm hoping to make a YouTube video out of this, so that way I don't have to worry about posting it on different platforms and not have a set video. So we're gonna see what we can do with this, but we are definitely gonna continue the series. We got a good response today, so I'm perfectly happy about that. We only advertised for 2 days, so I'm so happy. We really would like to do this again, and we would like to invite you to all of our socials and events, anything we would have in the future. Please subscribe to our, I'm gonna say subscribe to our channel when we don't have one. Subscribe to our social media, like we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we also have a website, which I would like to mention again. Callie, could you put the website on there as well? Our esa.org/students, and we have everything updated there, like all of our webinars, all of our Instagram lives, anything we do will be on there. We also have a Twitter live feed going on there on our website. So everything will be on the website, so I highly encourage you to go check it out. And also we have a description about the travel awards, which we are encouraging you to apply. The detailed description of that award is up there. And also there's a lot more fun things we do, so please come and check us out. And thank you so much once again, and have a great rest of your week. You can stop recording now.
Okay, yeah, bye, thank you. Yeah, email us if you have questions about grad school or travel grad or anything.
Okay.